the moment that froze the Empire. The Galactic Empire ruled with a cold certainty. For over 9,000 cycles, their dominion had been absolute, stretching from the twin stars of Zevros to the farthest dark edges of the Orion Shroud. Planets bent the knee. Civilizations surrendered before resistance even began. The Empire crushed rebellions with mathematical precision, their war fleets operating like unbreakable machines. And then they encountered Earth. At first, humanity barely registered as a blip in their star charts. An isolated world, young by galactic standards, with no known alliances and primitive, unstable political systems. The Empire saw no threat. That was their first mistake. The arrival of Imperial authority. It began with the arrival of Imperial Overseer Zaltren. A colossal command ship, Oblivion's Crown, entered the Sol system under full Imperial protocol. It hovered beyond Pluto's orbit like a metal god observing insects. Transmit surrender protocols, Zaltren ordered his diplomatic subroutines. Thousands of systems had accepted the same message. Dozens had been reduced to nothing when they refused. Earth's reply, however, was delayed. And when it finally came, it wasn't transmitted by any government body. It came from a private orbital station owned by a corporation, Helios Deep Space Mining Consortium. The message was simple. We acknowledge your transmission. Please direct further inquiries through proper commercial or sovereign channels. Earth's sovereignty remains intact. No trade agreements or territorial concessions will be negotiated at this time. No groveling. No threats. No fear. Zaltren paused. Arrogant primitives. He authorized the standard escalation protocol. The Empire's display of force. Imperial dreadnoughts spread throughout Sol, positioning themselves at Earth's Lagrange points, blocking orbital satellites, and disabling off-world communication relays. Small skirmish fleets vaporized outer mining colonies on Mars and Titan, making a brutal point without fully engaging planetary defenses. Earth's military satellites attempted to reposition, but were intercepted and neutralized before ground command could even react. From the surface, humanity watched helplessly. Social media feeds erupted. Alien warships visible over Europe tonight. Live feed, lights above Australia, military response imminent. Global blackout rumors, war? But while civilians panicked, Earth's military command wasn't idle. Buried beneath the Antarctic ice, the Global Defense Corps (GDC) activated its long-buried contingency. Project Aegis. The hidden depths of Earth. What the Empire didn't know, what they could never have suspected, was that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't its fleets. It was its unpredictability. Project Aegis wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It was a decentralized network of AI-commanded defense nodes, mobile hypervelocity platforms, orbital railguns disguised as inactive satellites, and ground-based systems invisible to foreign scans. Earth had prepared. Quietly. Patiently. While Earth's public governments argued in the open, secret alliances among global powers had laid the foundation of the Aegis network decades earlier. Fully automated, independent, and ready. The first clash. The Empire, still confident, deployed landing parties toward key population centers. London, Beijing, Rio, Lagos. Drop ships hovered over cities, broadcasting subjugation orders. Their assumption was simple. Terrify the population, break the will to resist. But the instant their ships breached lower atmosphere, thousands of kinetic kill lances fired from previously invisible stratospheric stations. In Beijing, 5 dropships vaporized mid-air before civilian eyes. In Rio, coordinated railgun arrays shredded entire landing formations. Over London, an orbital pulse disabled Imperial shielding, exposing troop carriers to hypersonic missiles launched from mobile ground convoys. They were ready, Zaltren whispered, watching his fleet icons vanish from the command holo. The Imperial High Command froze. This wasn't standard resistance. This wasn't desperation. This was a trap. Empire's hesitation. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Empire found itself hesitant. Zaltren issued new orders, pulling back the remaining landing parties and attempting to stabilize the orbital blockade. They must be bluffing. Escalate the fleet presence. More dreadnoughts warped into Sol. The sky above Earth grew darker, blackened by thousands of Imperial war engines. Yet Earth didn't fold. Instead, they broadcast a message. It wasn't sent by a government, nor by any general. It came from a civilian. Dr. Elena Voss, Earth's most renowned astrophysicist, stood before the galaxy in a calm broadcast. We are not your subjects. We are not prey. You will not find fear here. You may bring your fleets, but you will not break us. And if you strike again, you will learn why humanity survives when others do not. What the Empire feared most. The Empire understood power. But this unflinching defiance, unsettled them. The humans were not suicidal. They were not panicking. And worst of all, they were not unprepared. The longer the standoff dragged, the more data leaked from Earth's encrypted networks. Reports of unknown defense technologies. Cloaked quantum disruptors buried under oceans. Hyperspace denial systems that could disable warp drives mid-jump. Entire swaths of Earth's industrial base hidden underground. The Empire's calculations shifted. What should have been a simple conquest now looked like a catastrophic gamble. Zaltran's fleet watched and waited. The longer they hovered, the colder his blood ran. The whisper network spread. Word of the stalemate spread beyond Sol. Other species, subjugated, oppressed, broken by the Empire, watched with growing awe. The humans resist them? They fight, and the Empire hesitates? Insurrection cells across dozens of sectors whispered in back alleys and encrypted channels. Perhaps the Empire can be resisted after all. The unthinkable began to happen. Hope ignited. Earth's quiet preparation. As the Empire froze, Earth didn't waste the pause. Advanced strike ships mobilized inside hidden asteroid fields. Quantum encryption fields thickened, isolating human networks from infiltration. Covert agents inside imperial black markets quietly spread misinformation. Civilian morale solidified, not in fear, but with an eerie confidence the Empire had never encountered before. For the first time in galactic history, the Empire faced not rebellion but controlled defiance. And that terrified them far more. The tension snaps. After weeks of frozen conflict, Zaltran issued his final ultimatum. Surrender fully within 36 standard hours. Or total annihilation will commence. Earth's reply arrived minutes later. A single, sharp transmission. We do not negotiate under threat. You may fire when ready. The message wasn't signed by a government official. It was signed. Humanity. 0 hour approaches. The final ultimatum ticked toward its deadline. High above Earth, the Oblivion's crown loomed like a hungry beast, its energy cores glowing with pale blue light as weapon arrays powered up. Tens of thousands of support vessels aligned into the traditional spearhead formation, designed to pierce planetary shields and annihilate entire worlds in coordinated strikes. But as the Imperial fleet readied itself, deep beneath Earth's surface, humanity's true response was unfolding. Inside the command bunker known only as the Hollow, General Marlowe stood before the strategic interface with his war council. They expect terror. They expect us to crack, Marlowe said, voice low. Instead, we will give them calculation. His advisors nodded grimly. Project Aegis had bought them time. Now they would reveal the second phase. Project Erebus. Project Erebus activates. The Erebus protocol was humanity's silent sword, and it had been waiting for decades. While Earth's surface defenses held off the first wave, Erebus unleashed itself into the Empire's electronic backbone. Hyper-encrypted data worms tunneled into Imperial targeting systems. Spoofing signals disrupted fleet communications, causing ships to briefly lose synchronization. Quantum feedback loops subtly distorted gravimetric sensors. Suddenly, Imperial dreadnoughts began reporting minor system anomalies. Target drift. Sensor desync. Shield fluctuations. Seemingly minor. But to a fleet dependent on perfect coordination, perfection was non-negotiable. Zaltran's command center flashed with yellow alerts. Correct these faults immediately. His engineers scrambled, but the anomalies spread faster than they could contain them. The first human offensive. As the Empire tried to stabilize, Earth launched its first true counteroffensive. From hidden asteroid bases within the Kuiper Belt, Spectre-class corvettes uncloaked. These ships didn't fire traditional weapons. They carried advanced gravimetric projectors capable of bending local spacetime, disrupting inertial compensators, forcing enemy vessels into evasive maneuvers just to maintain stability. Hundreds of Imperial ships suddenly found themselves drifting off formation, unable to hold alignment for synchronized orbital bombardment. "They're scrambling our spatial lock," one Imperial captain shouted. "Realign vectors, now." But Earth wasn't finished. The shockwave assault. Simultaneously, hundreds of high-altitude EMP pulsars, HAPEs, detonated above Earth's upper atmosphere. Empire assault drones short-circuited and spiraled uselessly into oceans. Kinetic rods deactivated mid-flight and burned harmlessly in re-entry. Communication channels between fleets sputtered under the electromagnetic chaos. The spearhead formation collapsed into a staggered, disorganized cloud of ships, still individually lethal but no longer capable of collective planetary strike. Zhao Tren gritted his teeth. Stabilize. Stabilize formation. Prepare fallback synchronization algorithms. But his voice couldn't hide the flicker of doubt. For the first time in his career, he saw a primitive species systematically dismantling the Empire's finest tactics. A sudden communication. Then the unthinkable happened. A direct transmission pierced Imperial encryption. It was from Earth, and it was live. General Marlowe appeared on their screens, standing calmly beneath the symbol of the United Earth Defense Coalition. Overseer Zhao Tren, Marlowe said, his voice steady, you've made your demands. You've demonstrated your strength. Now allow me to demonstrate ours. As he spoke, orbital cameras, previously disabled, reactivated. The feed shifted. 100 human warships decloaked. Vessels hidden behind moons. Submerged suborbital carriers surfacing from deep oceans. Hyperspace-capable cruisers rising from the shadows of Saturn's rings. Each one painted black, minimal design, built for silent lethality, not for show. Humanity's Black Fleet had arrived. The Black Fleet's shadow. Zhao Tren stared at the unfolding horror. Impossible, they lacked the industrial capacity. But he was wrong. Earth had learned long ago that war would not be won through open shipyards and bravado. It would be won through patience, secrecy, and asymmetric superiority. The Black Fleet didn't match Imperial numbers. They didn't need to. Every Black Fleet vessel was engineered for precision kill zones. Advanced stealth tech. Targeted warp disruptors. Shield-phasing torpedoes designed to slip through energy barriers undetected. And every ship was crewed not by conscripts but by volunteers who had trained for this very day. The Empire's confidence cracks. Admirals across the Imperial command net began to waver. Overseer, if we continue the attack, we may lose control of the system entirely. Zhao Tren's mind raced. To withdraw would signal weakness. To attack might mean disaster. He looked again at the human general standing defiantly on his screen. Marlowe offered no threats, no ultimatums. Only facts. Withdraw. There is no surrender coming. Attack, and you will lose more than ships. The words hung in the silence like a guillotine. Whispers in the dark. As the standoff dragged on, more disturbing rumors spread through the Imperial networks. Multiple sectors reported rogue human units had infiltrated local command outposts. Imperial resource convoys in the Outer Rim vanished, presumed captured or destroyed. Civilized worlds quietly questioned the Empire's ability to control Earth. The worst whispers came from the Imperial Science Directorate itself. Their xenobiologists had made a terrible discovery. Human adaptability exceeded projections. Unlike most species that plateau after achieving planetary stability, humans evolved aggressively under stress. Their biology shifted under environmental extremes. Their psychology hardened under prolonged conflict. Their societies thrived on decentralized innovation. In short, they learned too fast. A growing nightmare. Inside the Emperor's private council chamber on Zitharon Prime, emergency meetings now ran continuously. Admiral after admiral whispered the same fear. If we lose Sol, others will rise. The Empire's entire model of rule, built on fear and overwhelming dominance, now faced a crack they could not seal. And the humans hadn't even gone on full offensive yet. The Emperor's command. Finally the word came down. Hold the blockade. Do not engage. Send emissaries. Delay them. The Empire for the first time in eons chose caution. They had frozen before Earth. And humanity knew it. The war shifts beyond Earth. The stalemate at Sol was broken not by force, but by Earth's unexpected audacity. While the Empire hesitated at the edge of Sol, paralyzed by doubt and fear, humanity made its next move. The Black Fleet didn't wait for the Empire to decide. It left. Operation Breakpoint is a go, General Marlowe announced, his voice calm as the dark vessels accelerated past Pluto's orbit. The message was simple. We won't be cornered. We'll carry the war to you. The Empire caught off guard. Imperial sensors flared across sectors long considered secure. Black Fleet strike groups appeared near critical hyperlane junctions. Remote Imperial fueling stations were sabotaged. Listening outposts at the Empire's frontier colonies vanished into silence. These weren't random raids. They were surgical decapitations. Each target, chosen months, sometimes years ago, meticulously mapped by deep-cover human operatives long before open war began. Executed with absolute precision. By the time Imperial fleets scrambled to respond, The Black Fleet was already gone, or worse, waiting in ambush for reinforcements. The rise of the outer colonies. As Earth pushed outward, something unexpected followed. Colonized human worlds, once silent under the Empire's shadow, rose up. Former human slave laborers on mining planets seized control. Smuggled weapons caches supplied by Black Fleet agents fueled spontaneous uprisings. Entire systems declared allegiance to the United Earth Defense Coalition. The Empire's worst nightmare unfolded. A decentralized rebellion. Not led by one world. Not limited to one star system. A human diaspora spreading like wildfire across hundreds of worlds. And behind every new uprising, two constant symbols emerged. The black insignia of the fleet. And the phrase whispered in every liberated sector. We were born under pressure. The Empire struggles to adapt. Inside Imperial Command, panic finally took hold. They're not fighting a conventional war. They're destabilizing entire sectors without engaging our fleets. They're using psychological warfare, cultural subversion, viral insurrection. Overseer Zaltren slammed his fist against the war table. Then crushed them. Find their homeworlds. Strip their colonies to ash. But even as he spoke, his orders were already too late. The Empire's rigid doctrine, centralized, monolithic, slow to adapt, was exactly what humanity preyed upon. Every Imperial attempt at counterstrike encountered false intelligence, ghost fleets, civilian protests disrupting fleet movement, Imperial officers assassinated by human infiltration teams. The Emperor's fear. On Zitharon Prime, the Emperor convened his secret council again. Gone were the days of calm superiority. Now even the most loyal admirals spoke in whispers. They know our language. They understand our politics. They corrupt our worlds from within. The Emperor's primary advisor, Vizier Kaloth, leaned forward and whispered, Your Majesty, we once believed they were merely resilient. We were wrong. They're transformative. The Council's secret. It was then that the Emperor admitted to his inner circle a secret known to only a handful in the Empire's core. They had been warned centuries ago. During the early years of the Empire's expansion, one of their first contacts with humanity, long before Earth's official induction, resulted in classified studies. Ancient alien precursors had documented humanity's unusual psychological and biological patterns. Hyperadaptability. Accelerated cognitive restructuring under trauma. Collective innovation during prolonged threats. A near-suicidal willingness to sacrifice for long-term survival. The Council had classified it as the Predator Seed Hypothesis. The hypothesis had been dismissed as speculative, until now. The galactic fracture begins. The Empire's allies saw the shift before their masters did. Trade guilds broke contracts with the Empire, secretly supplying materials to human colonies. Border species hedged loyalties, fearful of choosing the losing side. Pirate factions once loyal to Imperial credits now pledged to human sympathizers. The fracture lines within the galaxy's power structure widened every day. Humanity didn't need to conquer worlds. They made the worlds question the Empire's future. The Great Broadcast. And then Earth delivered its final blow, not with weapons but with words. In every corner of the Empire, civilian screens flickered to life. General Marlowe appeared once more, his tone measured, his message clear. We are not your enemies. We are not conquerors. But we will not submit to tyranny. The Empire promised stability through domination. We offer stability through freedom. To every species watching, you must choose. Remain subjects. Or stand with us. But understand this, humanity will not fall. We will not freeze. We rise. The Empire's collapse accelerates. The broadcast detonated through the Empire like an ideological bomb. Unrest became open rebellion. Governors declared neutrality. Imperial fleets fractured as commanders questioned their orders. Even some of Zaltren's elite officers wavered. Sir, we may no longer hold loyalty from entire sectors. And beneath it all, the human Black Fleet kept striking. Not to annihilate, but to destabilize. To make the Empire bleed itself dry. Humanity's unfolding masterstroke. Humanity hadn't simply built warships. They had studied the Empire's weaknesses for decades. Its dependence on loyalty. Its vulnerability to divided leadership. Its terror of cultural contamination. The war was no longer kinetic. It was psychological, political, and unstoppable. The message sent. In the final days of the third year, the Black Fleet delivered one last encrypted message directly to the Imperial High Throne. You called us unpredictable, dangerous, and unstable. You were correct. But you forgot one thing: we adapt faster than you can predict. The tipping point. The Imperial High Throne was a fortress no longer fortified. In its grand chamber, once pulsing with the confidence of unquestioned authority, the Emperor sat still, his ceremonial robes heavy as if they carried the weight of collapsing stars. Around him, reports came in rapid succession. Trellian Sector, lost to rebellion. Kelvar Border, Imperial fleet defected. Lorien Trade Ring, guilds declared independence. Kryak System, Imperial governor executed by his own subordinates. Your Majesty, whispered Vizier Kaloth, his voice thin with barely concealed fear, we have lost 63 sectors in 4 months. The Emperor's eyes burned, not with anger but with something far worse for a ruler. Recognition. We never faced an enemy, he said hollowly. We faced evolution. The unthinkable gambit. Desperate, the High Throne authorized the final directive, an all-out assault directly on Earth itself. They gathered what remained of loyal fleets, a grand armada unlike any assembled before, numbering nearly 10,000 warships. We will cut off the head of this serpent, shouted Supreme Admiral Kravak, his voice trembling between fear and bravado. But the Empire was making its greatest miscalculation yet. Because Earth was ready. Operation Shadow Net. Before the Imperial Grand Armada reached Sol, it encountered the first phase of Earth's final masterstroke. At the edges of known space, an invisible web had been waiting. Sensor disruptors planted years earlier. Stealth platforms cloaked by gravimetric distortions. Viral AIs infecting the Armada's navigation systems. Sir, our charts are changing, coordinates shifting. We are being rerouted. The massive fleet found itself fragmented into dozens of smaller groups, isolated, lost in dead space, unable to form their battle formations. It's like the space itself is lying to us, cried one captain. It wasn't space. It was humanity's mind at war. Earth reveals its final weapon. And then, as fragments of the Grand Armada finally limped toward Sol, they saw it. The Sentinel Array. A colossal artificial construct surrounding Earth's orbit, part weapon, part shield, part psychological terror. Quantum disruptors. Antimatter displacers. AI-piloted defense platforms. Hyper-intelligent swarms operating at thought speed. Every approach vector was layered with defensive redundancy. But the true terror wasn't just the weapons, it was the message the Empire received as they arrived. You have come to destroy what you never understood. But know this: Earth does not stand alone. Earth has become the center. Because orbiting beside Earth were not just Earth's warships, but fleets from dozens of liberated species who had thrown off the Empire's rule. Humanity hadn't just risen. They had built a galactic coalition. The Empire's final battle. The Imperial Armada launched its assault anyway. They never reached orbit. Entire strike groups vanished under precision strikes. Command ships detonated mid-order. Human infiltration units aboard enemy vessels activated deep cover sabotage. Imperial communication networks collapsed under coordinated AI warfare. It was not a battle. It was dismemberment. Within 48 hours, half the Armada was gone. Within 72 hours, the Empire's offensive had ceased to exist. The Emperor's last stand. When word reached the High Throne, silence reigned. The Emperor sat unmoving as his palace windows displayed the live feed of his burning fleet. They've done what no species has ever done, Kaloth whispered. The Emperor finally rose, voice a low growl. No, Vizier. They've done what they were engineered to do. And at last, he acknowledged the ancient warning the Empire had ignored for centuries. Do not provoke the Terrans. They are not a species. They are an event. The Empire fractures. As Earth solidified its power, the Empire began to fracture like shattered crystal. Outlying governors declared independence. Species long oppressed by imperial rule openly allied with Earth. Slave races joined humanity's coalition, many integrating fully into human society. The imperial treasury collapsed under economic sanctions and resource blockades. Soon, the High Throne controlled only a handful of core worlds, surrounded, isolated, and irrelevant. The dawn of a new era. 6 months after the final battle, humanity convened its first galactic accord on neutral ground, a station orbiting the ancient ruins of Zal Prime, symbolizing the fall of the old order. General Marlowe stood before gathered species once crushed beneath the Empire's heel. We do not seek revenge, he declared. We seek balance. Power must serve life, not control it. Humanity proposed no empire, no central dominion. Instead, they offered something revolutionary. Equal representation across species. Cooperative defense. shared knowledge, freedom of cultural evolution. Where the empire ruled by fear, humanity offered something far more terrifying to tyrants. Just the whisper of the old council. Historians would later recall that somewhere, deep beneath a forgotten imperial archive, the last surviving members of the council gathered one final time. One whispered, "We warned them. Long ago. The Terrans would not merely survive. They would adapt. An adaptation is irreversible." The legacy begins. Earth was no longer a peripheral world. Humanity was no longer a junior species. They had risen as the great balancing force of the galaxy, feared by some, respected by all. And as the stars turned, new generations whispered the words that every child learned early. We were born under pressure. We do not freeze. We rise. The end. White heavy checkmark now. As promised, here's the subscriber call to action, perfectly fitting your long-form story channel. Milky Way. If you enjoyed witnessing humanity's unstoppable rise, don't forget to subscribe to the Void Narratives. Here, every week we dive into epic human versus galaxy stories where evolution, strategy, and raw willpower reshape the universe. The war may end, but our stories have just begun. Subscribe now and join the uprising.